we flew to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, actually, and they had a little farmhouse, and a couple guys were in there building these pay stations. We said, look, this is what we want to do with the gates and the stacking, and they said, well, let's work together. So when we opened in 2001 on Perkins Road, boy, it was a nightmare. Nothing worked right. We were running around. My dad said, look, get the cigar box out again. Let's make cash this way. And we made it work. And we went through about 4 or 5 generations of that pay station in the first 2 years. Oh, wow. And but now we've got it perfected.
We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. B1 Bank knows that entrepreneurs like you are always thinking one step ahead. So you need banking solutions that can keep up. It begins with lending. Does your business need working capital or financing for new equipment? How about a real estate or a construction loan? Good news, the B1 lending team is ready to learn your goals and help you find the best lending option available. Now let's talk about uncomplicating your daily cash flow. B1 offers a full array of treasury management services that let you collect funds faster, pay funds more efficiently, and access your information with powerful online tools. Most importantly, B1 understands the value of working with local nonprofits to build a stronger community. They believe in giving back through hands-on involvement with their B1 Community Outreach Program because it's simply the right thing to do. B1 Bank. Be uncomplicated. To learn more, visit b1bank.com. Equal housing lender, member FDIC. Hello, my name is Andrew McClendon. I'm your host of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast, and I am happy to welcome our guest today, Mr. Justin Alford, co-owner of Benny's Car Wash. Justin, welcome to the podcast.
Honored to be here.
So Benny's is a family-run business. You guys have been around for 70 years. Right?
This is our 70th year anniversary, sure is.
This year is. And you guys washed a bunch of cars in that time. Any clue how many cars you've washed?
It's in the millions, thank goodness. And it's been coming from a long time.
Yeah, that is a long time. So you're third generation. So who all in the family is still engaged in the business?
Well, currently it's my dad, Benny, and myself, and my brother Jason. So it's the 3 of us at the moment. But it goes way back when my grandfather started in 1951. So
now, Miss Pat was your mother.
That's my mother. Yeah,
was I know instrumental in the business at times, and I know she was engaged in the C-stores, right?
She was. Yeah. We're a true family business in every aspect.
So, how old were you when you started in the business?
I guess officially I started in 1989 and graduated from Catholic High. And said, Dad, I'm coming to work with you today. And he never pushed us to work in the business, neither one of us. We've been around it our whole lives because, like most family businesses, it is your life. Every aspect, every second of the day, that's what you talk about, think about, and discuss. So we were around it all the time. I helped a lot with the computers when I was young. I used to print flyers on my computer for the car wash when we were downtown on Florida Street. And but officially in 1989, graduated from high school and said, I'm coming to work with you today. He said, come on. And like most, it wasn't just, here's your office, go do what you do. No, it's go out front, wash some towels, wipe cars, and jump in. And I can honestly say I've done every aspect of the business and proud to say that. And I think our staff knows that as well.
Now, did you start then and stay full-time then?
I did, and I went on to LSU, and I graduated LSU as well in 1993, and did 4 years there with a degree in business, and played in the Golden Band from Tigerland 4 years as well. But I kept working the whole way through, and there was even times when I would bring my uniform and get dressed at the car wash on Airline Highway, and then go play the football game on Saturdays. But I did work the whole way through.
What instrument did you play?
I was a drummer, played snare drums. So. My daughter's still in the Tiger Band today. She's going to be a senior this year.
No kid.
So we have my son. He just graduated from Tulane, and he was in the Tulane marching band. So band's been a big part of us. And
well, I know a bunch of people, I should say, that have been in the LSU band in particular, and just, I mean, life-changing experience. It's something that it's very much part of their DNA.
It is, and learned a lot from it too. And like a lot of people who play football and sports, they correlate those life-changing experiences into business. And I can say the Tiger Band, it was amazing to watch Dr. Frank Wicks and Miss Linda Morehouse run that organization, because back then it was basically just two of them and a secretary. And to think about it, to move 286 people on a game day, away trips, and they fed us all uniforms, the logistics behind it's truly amazing. And when I think back on it, I really enjoyed watching them. The buses showed up on time, the instruments were moved. Here we are traveling across the country playing these games, and it's a great business, a great organization to watch, to move around in. And I'm very proud of my 4 years, and I look forward to all the alumni days ahead, hopefully, and it's a true treat to have been part of it.
That's fantastic. So, your dad is a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
And he cracks me up. Whenever I see him, I said, Benny has business. And, from time to time, maybe something didn't go well the day before. Maybe it's weather, or maybe it's, something that happened on one of the projects. And he'd say, you could have got him cheap yesterday, and it just cracks me up. Like whatever happened was so bad, he was willing to sell the whole shebang for cheap, And
today is a great example of that. After 13 inches of rain last night,
oh my goodness,
you could buy him cheap today, and and that also came from when growing up over the years. Christmas Eve is historically one of our busier days of the year, and we would be busy on Christmas Eve, and everybody's getting their car cleaned. And they would always come up to us and say, "Oh, you're getting rich." My dad said, "Well, look, next time it's raining, come by and visit with me." So he used to always say that, because people always come by on the big days, and they never came by on the days when it was raining. And they always said, "Golly, y'all are just making so much money here." So, well, when it's raining, you need to come visit as well. So that's kind of where that started from years ago.
Yeah, that's great. But your grandfather started the business, and he sounded like a really entrepreneurial guy. He was a locksmith, right?
He was, and he has a great story. And growing up, I used to love to listen to his stories and his history. He was born in Dallas, Texas, and he left home at a young age, like most kids did in that time, and became a locksmith. So he traveled all over the country, all over the Southeast, and he met my grandmother in Defuniak Springs, Florida. Right. And he ended up kind of settling in Panama City, Florida, and he opened a lock shop there, and he sold lawnmowers and other things. And somebody built a car wash across the street. Guy named Jack Tokowich. He was from Detroit, Michigan, and he's kind of I would say he's a northern guy. Moved down to Panama City, opened a car wash, and my grandfather and him became friends. And they were going to go build a car wash together in Pensacola, and it didn't work out. But my grandfather ended up doing it anyway. He got a partner and went to Pensacola, Florida, opened his first car wash in 1951 there, and they say the rest is history. And it's kind of a fascinating story as well, because the first automatic car wash came about in 1946 in Detroit, Michigan. It was called Paul's Auto Wash. And I had the pleasure of visiting it in the 90s before it closed. And he tells me the stories, because it wasn't like now we had the internet and you had resources. He said, I knew where to get car wash equipment from, and I knew where to go. It was all made in Detroit, Michigan. And he got in his car and drove to Detroit, Michigan, and went to Paul's and all the ones that were there, and he found the equipment and found how it was made and where it was purchased from, and he started. So he was from the ground level up in the car wash industry.
So that would have been a tunnel that you drove through?
It was, and back then they used what's called pull chains. So they would take a hook and they would hook a chain onto your bumper, and it would pull the car through. And there was a lot of hand wash. You had guys that they had steam cleaners. You had big white walls back then, big thick white walls, and they would steam these white walls and have a lot of labor and a lot of people wiping the cars down. They'd hook these chains and pull them through. And one of my dad's first jobs was hauling pull chains back and forth from the front of the car wash to the exit. So when he was a young guy, 9 years old basically is when they started, he would carry the pull chains from the front to the back.
Boy, I bet you was strong.
Yeah, it was. And it's a fascinating business, and that's why I'm still intrigued with it today, to see the stages that it's gone through over the years and listen to all his stories when I was a young guy, when he started and how he started. And so that's how it started. In 1951, he went to Pensacola.
Your dad stayed in the business his whole life, right?
He did.
And he became is the godfather of the modern car wash. I mean, he's won Lifetime Achievement Awards.
Yes.
And he's in the Hall of Fame. Tell us about some of his recognition.
Yeah, he has. And And back to my grandfather, as it started back then, and they started associations, the International Car Wash Association. My grandfather was on the ground floor of that, the Southeastern Car Wash Association. And my dad and all of us worked our way up through that. And my dad was president of the Southeast Car Wash Association. He was president of the International Car Wash Association. He's awarded the Hall of Fame, which is a pretty prestigious award for the car wash industry, for the International Car Wash Association, as well as the Southwest Car Wash Association over in Texas as well. So he's worked his way up through all those levels. And for us, that's our family. It really is. We grew up going to the trade shows. We grew up with the meetings. And those are our best friends today is from that industry. Yeah. And we can go into that. But it's a lot of great memories from those days and seeing him do that.
I was going to ask you about that a little later on. So why don't we talk about today, like where Benny's is today. And why don't you walk us through the number of facilities, number of car washes, and et cetera.
Well, right now we have 9 automated car washes. We have 5 oil changes, and we have 3 convenience stores. And we're actually building another oil change at the moment. So we have 3 independent business entities is the way we think of them. So like our facility on Airline Highway, we have all 3. We have a car wash, an oil change, and a convenience store.
And the gas pumps go with the convenience store.
That's correct. They do. And we treat them like that too. And if we talk operations later, but we run them separately. We have separate managers, separate P&Ls, separate electric meters, water meters, everything. So we put on 3 different hats every day. I wear my convenience store hat, our oil change hat, and our car wash one, and we treat them separately.
And how many employees does it take to run that operation?
We have about 300. Of course, that goes up and down with everything, and we're always looking for staff. That's always an ongoing challenge, and we have about 300 employees right now.
So what's your split like on the admin side of it, in general manager side of it versus, the rest of it?
So we have an operations manager who runs pretty much everything on the car wash and oil change side. And then he has 2 general managers underneath him for the car wash. One looks after 4, one looks after 5. We have one guy who's under him who looks after all the oil changes. And then we have another guy who's in charge of just the convenience stores, and he has managers under him as well. So we have a lot of layers. We have a lot of administration behind the scenes. We have an office staff of about 10 people. We have a maintenance staff of about 10.
Oh, wow.
And then we have location managers, assistant managers, and then employees throughout. So we have it structured in I guess a top-down style. But
and so what is your job? What do you do day in and day out?
Well, I always say I'm probably the most expensive garbage man in the city, because it seems like all I do is pick up trash all day long, and that's my thing, a pet peeve. I can't walk by a piece of trash, I pick it up. But it
shows. Your stores are always in great shape.
Thanks, and it amazes me about how much garbage we get, and I know we're on the subject of that too. But I remember years ago they used to measure the success of Mardi Gras in New Orleans by the amount of trash they dumped. They weighed it. And for us, we spend on trash, and we dump every day, the dumpsters and everything. It's amazing that we forget about those little details are important. But back to what I do on a day-to-day basis, it's everything, all of the above. So, of course, a lot of new facility development. I work on a lot of that, construction contracts. But we're hands-on, and we really are. My dad and I guess, if everybody had to wave a wand and say, what's your perfect day, is on Saturdays, we ride around to every single location. We start in the morning, and we go over all of them. It's about 84 miles to do all the locations on a Saturday. And we cover every single one, and we ride together, and we have lunch together, and we spend that day, and we're hands-on. We're there with the people every day. And that's just Saturday, but every day I go to different locations, and we're out there every day. I dress in the same uniform and everything, ready to work.
When you ride with your dad on Saturdays, you're going through the car wash at each place as well?
We do. Sometimes we will wash 9 times at a location, and we shake hands and get to really know the staff and the people and the customers. And
but you're not just washing your car; you're checking out the quality of the wash, right? I mean, the equipment, is it functioning properly? And,
sure.
You have guys doing that, but this is you verifying and.
It is, and it's us, and the quality comes. It's all of us are responsible for quality, and including myself. And riding through those car washes, that's the only way you really know your true product, what you're turning out, is you got to experience it. And you can stand on the side, in which we do a lot, watching cars go through, but riding through in your own to see how dry it came out, the shine. We look at the shine a lot. The wheels are very important to us to make sure the wheels are clean, and we check all of those out every time. So, sometimes on Saturdays it's 9 times we're washing the vehicle and seeing what it looks like. And the biggest thing is meeting employees and staff and customers. That's number one. That's what keeps us going every day.
Just being a loyal customer of yours for
Thank you.
a long time now, I have watched your business up close, and it's a constant improvement. It's a constant change, in between your 3 different businesses, whether, the pump handles are being changed, or the pumps are being cleaned, it's something. And it just fascinates me how complex your business is and how much is going on. And it's I think unless you sit back and kind of analyze it, you might not think that business is as sophisticated as it is, but it's extremely complex from what I perceive.
It is, and people have really no idea until they've been in the back. And it is a little bit of the history of the way we started. My grandfather started back what we call full service car wash. And you probably remember it back in the day when we were here at Florida Street and Airline. You would drive in, you would get out your vehicle, we would take your vehicle, we would vacuum it, we would wash it, then we would clean the inside, we'd wipe the windows down at the front, then we would blow the horn and you would come out and get in your vehicle and you leave. And we had these nice big lobbies and waiting rooms, and they were nice, and we'd sell merchandise. But things have evolved, and that's the way we did it for a long time, and we still offer that to an extent.
Right.
But in 2000, and I guess we're pretty much documented as the first modern-day express car wash in the country. And what I mean by express car wash, we moved everybody to staying in their vehicle, riding through. We incorporated the free vacuuming system where you can vacuum yourself for free. And then the pay stations. We were pretty much the first in the country to put all that together.
Which is when you pull up, you would pay at a station,
correct,
open a gate, and then you go in and ride through. Right?
That's correct. So exterior car washing existed up north a lot back in the day because they have salt. So up north they get salt, so the cars will get real dirty. You have to wash your car up there because it rusts out and corrode and everything. It was never very popular in the South. But we traveled around the country in the 90s and the early 80s, late 80s, and looking at different styles of car washing because we were facing a real labor crisis like everybody was. If you would have come to our facility back in 1992 on Airline Highway or somewhere like that, on a Saturday, we would have 70 to 80 people just working there at that facility. Well, finding 70, 80 people today is a real challenge. So now on a Saturday, busy Saturday, we may have 15 to 20 just washing cars instead of the 80 we would have 20 years ago.
And so the Express helped you bring your hand labor down?
It did, but it wasn't just that. It was the way times changed. And so in 2000, we traveled around the country and even the world, and where we really learned something was in Germany. We have a good friend in the car wash business in Germany. His name was Dr. Inning. Unfortunately, he passed away, but his kids still run him, and I'm still in contact with him all the time. And we went over to Germany, and in Germany, their labor problems were worse than ours at the time. Their minimum wage was much higher. And we went there, and they were washing cars, and they had all these free vacuums out front. We said, wow, we spent all this time and labor vacuuming the car. Let's provide this service for them.
I see.
So we brought that back. And then the other problem was cashiering and stuff. So we were in the gas business on Airline Highway and everything. And we said, people pay at the pump with their own credit card. They pump their own gas, and it used to be full service gas years ago, and it morphed into this self service. So why can't we do that with car washing? So we actually tried to take a gas pump and take the handle off and pay at the pump and have the car wash gates open. We played with all that before we built it, but officially in 2001, and I remember the day very well. It was around August of 2001 when we opened the car wash on Perkins Road. Was the first modern day express car wash in the country that involved free vacuuming, washing the outside, and the automatic pay station. The other thing too is people's lives changed. Drive-throughs. The first restaurants, they didn't have drive-throughs. Well, people live and work in their car, It's actually their second most highest investment is their vehicle, their home usually being their first. And they live in their car. And when you would go in it, they kind of feel like they're violated a little bit. We saw. So the trends changed to say, people want to stay in their car. Cell phones had gotten popular. People work in their car. They eat in their car. They read in their car. They do everything there. So we said, let's see if we can come up with a way they can stay in, do a quick wash. If they want to vacuum themselves, we're going to provide that area for them. And that started in 2001. And now the industry is literally on fire. And it's all over the world now, this express car washing concept that my dad and all of us came up with right here in Baton Rouge. And like they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So the guy in Germany, they didn't have that. They just had the express wash model with the free vacuums.
They did, and they were still using people to take the money. And we put it all together in the United States, and we came up with the pay stations and the gates. And the gates actually stack the cars in line. So, because we get a lot of questions, people say, well, how do you know what I paid for is different than that? Well, that's the purpose of the gates. So the two gates won't open up at the same time. You pay if you get the best wash, the $19 one. That gate opens up, you go through. The other gate stays down to make sure that they keep them in order.
Right.
So that was kind of the purpose. So we kind of put all that together in one facility, and with oil changing, with gas, and it's been very successful for us.
So how do you do that? What kind of investment is required to develop that pay station? And I mean, it seems like the technology build would be a significant investment. You don't really need that many of them. I mean, you don't need more than 20 or 30 of them, right?
Well, we actually have 3, and we have 4 at the one on Seagan. We have Perkins. We have 2. So each pay station's around the 70,000 range.
Oh wow!
And when we tried to develop it ourselves, and I was in the computers and trying to program this stuff, and we ran into some hiccups with the gas pump and all that. We went to a company out of Pennsylvania, Innovative Control Systems, who was building one for the oil companies. And if you remember, in the 90s, all the gas stations had car washes, and they still do to an extent.
Right,
they were touch-free car washes, and they had little pay stations.
Right.
But they couldn't get the production of the amount of volume through them to make it worthwhile to the investment that we spend. It was just kind of an afterthought. Texaco would have or Exxon would have a gas station in the corner. They would have this little car wash next to it that had a little pay reader in there, and it was a successful model. So they were actually washing more cars than us, not in terms of the location, but the amount of locations they had. So if Exxon had 30 gas stations in Baton Rouge, they had 30 car washes. Right. They were doing business. So they taught people, first of all, to pump gas themselves. Second of all, to pay at the pump, do it themselves with credit card and all that. And third, they were having, let's get a car wash and stay in our car and ride through and go. So we put all that together with our way of washing cars, which we can do a lot more volume through. And that's kind of where it all came about. We worked with this company out of Pennsylvania. My brother and I got on a plane. We flew to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, actually. And they had a little farmhouse, and a couple guys were in there building these pay stations. We said, look, this is what we want to do with the gates and the stacking. And they said, well, let's work together. So when we opened in 2001 on Perkins Road, boy, it was a nightmare. Nothing worked right. We were running around. My dad said, look, get the cigar box out again. Let's make cash this way. And we made it work. And we went through about 4 or 5 generations of that pay station in the first 2 years. Oh, wow. And but now we've got it perfected. And it's still always changing because technology does. But the newest one we have that we just upgraded them all this year. We have the EMV readers. We have RFID, which we can talk about if you like. The RFID readers. We have Tap and Pay, Apple Pay, Android Pay, and touchscreen. So it's developed a whole lot.
Like everything else, constantly improving.
Constantly and changing.
Let's take a quick break there, get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. We would like to thank Mbd Automation for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. Mbd Automation is a mechanical install contractor with a program-centric focus. So what do these guys do? They install conveyor systems, VRCs, platforms, singulators, sorters, and all sorts of other types of automated equipment. Who do they work for? They work for systems integrators, manufacturers, and end users in fulfillment centers, airports, mail processing facilities, and projects in the defense industry. Mbd Automation works for numerous Fortune 500 companies across the United States, and has a list of international clients that they perform work for in the U.S. as well. If Mbd Automation can help you on your next project, you can find them online at mbdautomation.com. And we are back with Justin Alford, co-owner of Benny's Car Wash. So we started talking about technology, and I know that you guys are constantly making improvements there. Can you give us an insight into the amount of technology that you guys are deploying now?
Yeah, it is truly amazing, because we talked about my grandfather starting in the 50s. It was bucket and sponges and conveyor chains and all that, but it's really grown. It's amazing how many computers and what we do with vehicles. And we have infrared eyes that are measuring the length of the vehicle. We have pads that are telling you how far the tires are apart. So we know a lot about the vehicle when it enters our car wash. So when you pay at the pay station, the gate raises up. It tells the computer you paid for the best wash, and this is what needs to be done to it. We load you on the conveyor, and a roller pops up. It's all computer driven, right. And you go through this system of eyes that starts reading the length of the vehicle. Then we have a set of pads that reads how far the tires are apart. So we know a lot about the size, shape, and we don't know the type, but we know a lot about the size and shape of the vehicle going through.
And does that adjust how the rollers wash the car?
It does. So some of the technology we use what the terms called mitters, which are the things hanging down that go over the top of the car. We call them side brushes, but they're really not brushes. It's a foam material, and it turns that stuff on and off where it needs to in your vehicle. And the speed, we can always adjust the speed. So we use what's called variable frequency drives. In the old-fashioned days, we used to use starters. So you had an electric starter that when you're coming through, and maybe we're getting a little technical, but we use a relay. So this computer says, all right, Andrew's vehicle is 20 feet long. His tires are so many feet apart. At 20 feet, we want to turn this on. At 22 feet, we want to turn this on. At 23 feet, we turn this on. And those are relays that fire, and they're fired from a computer. And that relay turns on old-fashioned starter, which would suck in, it would turn this motor on, it would turn off. Now we use variable frequency drives, which are basically computers. Has an IP address, has an Ethernet cable plugged into it, and we can do all kinds of things. We can speed the device up, we can slow it down. We can also, it monitors the amperage it's pulling too. So if it's pulling too much amperage, maybe it's a little wider vehicle, we'll move a piece of equipment out even further. So there's a lot of things that go into it, and with that becomes challenges and good things. So in the old days, my dad used to hire maintenance people that were great farmers, great mechanics. They worked on tractors. And a guy who worked on a farm understood everything. He could work on hydraulic hoses. He could work on, he knew what grease fittings were. Nowadays, IT and maintenance are becoming one of the same. Okay. You're working on a device. It's not a physical starter anymore. It's an electronic computer, basically, that's turning on electricity on and off and different devices. So like our latest car wash has 1,200 amp service coming in, 480 volts, 3-phase power. And we're running a lot of different devices, and it's changed over the years. And chemistry, all of those things are controlled by. It's really computer controlled.
Well, it's interesting when I consider, the number of years that I've been going through your car wash tunnels, and you can see how those things have changed, like the things that wash your car. And it strikes me that there's a lot of equipment investment.
It is,
and it's this constant. I mentioned this earlier, but this constant process of chasing quality and chasing, I guess, efficiency and the best wash that you can deliver. Right?
And it is, and I'll throw some numbers out there. Our newest location that we opened on Lee Drive, it's just a car wash. We spent close to $7 million on, and just the equipment alone is $2 million. So it's a lot involved. It's a lot of investment, and I tell everybody, the day you open it, you start working on it, and the day you close it, you start working on it. You work on it every day in between. It's never stops. And I was just at Disney World recently, and they're one of the most well-run companies in the world. And the roller coasters and a lot of the same technology they use, we do. And I always go and I look at the different sensors, and their same chain that they use to pull the roller coaster up is the same chain that we use as well to pull cars through. So you're always working on it, you're always adjusting, you're always improving it. Even the wash materials, years ago, we used to use bristles back in the day. Right. Then we went to cloth. Now we use a foam material. That's a lot lighter. It's a lot more easier to control. Has a lot more fingers on it, so it can get into different cracks and crevices. And so we're always adjusting it. The other thing that people don't realize either is cars are always changing. Right. I mean, we were washing, when my grandfather started, it was white walls that were 6 inches high. When I started washing cars in the 80s and 90s, we had Cadillacs with chrome spoked wheels, and we had vinyl tops to deal with and all these things. And now today you're looking at Teslas and Lexuses and Corvettes. There's so many different types, and vehicles change all the time. And those also, we got to be changing with them. So technology is always changing in the car wash.
It's interesting if you consider that investment that you have to make in your facilities, and then you have this weather that you have to deal with, right? So I mean,
you do.
And so I was just curious, like, you got to make hay while the sun's shining, right? You got to wash cars while the sun's shining. And so how do y'all look at that? Because I mean, I can remember there being some years being in the construction business where, El Nino was so bad that it severely impacted our ability to build, get foundations out of the ground because of the rain. And I know that certainly must have impacted y'all's business. But sure. When you have, rain events like that or years that are rainy, how do y'all look at that as far as debt management, debt strategies, and saving for a rainy day kind of thing? How do y'all?
Yeah, that's a great point. And for years in the car wash business, you used to have 2 months out of the year where you lost your shirt, we call it, where you want to just die. It was so bad and so rainy. Then you had 2 months that were fantastic. And the rest of the year, you kind of broke even. So you had to really save those 2 good ones to cover for your 2 bad ones. And the rest of the year, you kind of treaded water. Right. But things have changed a little bit in a couple ways we can talk about. We have the monthly subscription plans now, where you can pay one price and wash as often as you like. So that's some recurring revenue. Even when the weather's kind of bad, we still have that coming in. Things have changed a little bit too. People's mindset changed. It used to be in the day when you were going to wash your car, it was kind of like dry cleaning. Because when I used to drive the cars on, everybody had a sticky note pad in their windshield, and they would have their to-do list on their dry cleaning, car wash, groceries. But people's lives changed, so now they're so spur of the moment. So when it would rain in the morning 20 years ago, our car wash was slow the whole day, even if the sun came out. Nowadays, people's life is so fluid and changing so fast. If it rains in the morning and the sun does come out, we actually get busy now. So, and then even with the subscription plans and exterior car wash is a little more convenient and stuff like that, and we have more locations. Even the rainy days were not as bad as they used to be years ago. We still fall off for sure. We still like bright sunshine, don't get me wrong, but it's not quite as bad. So it is very hard to plan. And then in the old days when we were doing what was called full service, when we had 70 people to schedule, the weather was a nightmare. Now we can scale our crews back because it's exterior mostly, and we can go with less labor, which is still our number one cost, and we can get a little more efficient. So we try to spread it over the whole year, and we know we're going to have some bad months. We know we're going to have some good, and you just hopefully it works out. And also the days is another thing that people don't consider either. Rain on a Tuesday is different than rain on a Saturday. Right. When we lose a Saturday, that's much worse than losing a Tuesday. Also, cloudy days hurt us too. So not just inches of rain, but if it's cloudy on a Saturday, we do half the business we would if it was sunshiny. Even though it's not raining, you didn't get measurable inches of rain. The weather is a big factor, and that's something we used to say. So my grandfather picked one of the wettest states of the United States to build a car wash. And I always look at my friends in Phoenix and Denver and Reno, Nevada, and Las Vegas. They call me, and they have 365 days of car washing a year. So, boy, it must be nice to plan, to budget, to do all those things. So back to what your original statement was, you got to behave when the sun's shines. And that's how we spend so much time working on our facilities, so much time and money keeping them ready to go. So when that sun is out on a Saturday and people do want to have high demand, we're ready to wash cars and we can maximize them.
So on this subscription plan, you've got to figure out before you put it into play. Obviously, y'all went through this process of saying, is this going to sabotage? Is it going to drive up sales or drive down sales? And obviously that it made sense to go with it. But I know that because of that subscription plan, it's just easy for me to whip in and run through the car wash. It is. And I end up washing my vehicle more than I would have otherwise.
It isn't.
And I don't think it's. I just think it's because of the ease. You just pull in, it reads your little scan card or whatever, and you go on through, and most times I won't even vacuum. I'll just drive on out and keep going. And so how's that working? Is it materializing the way that you'd hoped it?
It is, and I guess if I could wave a magic wand and have a perfect day, I would say the subscription is probably. If we could say we had sunshine every day, we could plan out an entire year of perfect days. I'd probably do better if I didn't have the subscription, because there is a lot of backroom involved with it. We got people now managing tags. We got people managing license plates and credit card expiration. So our overhead went up with these things. But at the end of the day, we want you to use it.
Right.
The more you use it, the cleaner your car is, the easier for us to clean, the easier for us to keep it looking great. So we do want you to use it. So yes, it has been a good thing. There's a lot of cost involved with it. The cost of the tags. We have RFID tags, and we're now experimenting with license plate recognition, and we're working on that to see if we can get that to work. Instead of a tag in your window, we could maybe just read the license plate. We've experimented with an app. If you can have an app with geofencing, you come to our facility, you have your phone, it knows you're there. We can see what type of car you have signed up, and we can go through. So we're trying to develop that even more, but it's a lot of expense with managing the plans. So at the end of the day, I think the subscription plans have helped us. I think the customer likes it for the speed and convenience, and we're glad we have them. But at the end of the day, if I could have a perfect world, I probably was more profitable the other way. But hey, we're moving with the times, and people do like them, and they do serve their purpose real well.
Yeah, constant improvement.
Sure.
Look, the last 5 years, you guys have had to deal with a number of significant challenges, like most businesses. Most recently was COVID. I was just curious if you could give us a little insight of how that impacted your business.
Sure, and I can remember the day just like everybody else can. I remember hearing the governor speak. It was on a Sunday around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and when he said he's going to shut the whole state down, I literally got nauseous. I'm sitting in my desk saying, what in the world am I going to do with 300 employees? Like most business, we didn't know where this was going to go, what was going to happen, and your mind starts racing. So, at that point, we stayed open the whole time. We were deemed essential with gas stations and oil changing and car washing, and we stayed open. We did close our interior service for about 2 weeks, and we just took a deep breath and to recruit. We have a fantastic staff, and we're real firm believers in pulling everybody in and getting a lot of opinions. And we said, where do we go from here? We had probably 100 people just say, look, I'm not comfortable working right now during COVID. I'm just not going to come to work. That scared me alone. We're going to have enough staff to even run. But we did. And demand fell way off, too. I mean, there was no one buying gas during those times because they weren't driving. The oil change business was way off. Car washing was way off initially. However, after that first 2 weeks, everybody got a grip. And I'll also tell everybody, too, 2 weeks is a magic number. Everybody spends the first day or two just panicking like everybody does, saying, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Then they start getting a grip, and they said, look, we got to learn how to survive in these times. So like all of us, we did the things. We put the glass partitions up in our convenience stores. Put glass partitions up. We had sanitizer everywhere. We started the disinfectant. So we spray the inside of your car with disinfectant we found. We close the doors. We let it sit for a minute. It kills all the germs in there. That's a safety for our employees as well as safety for the customer. We added that service in there. So it was an effect. Our business was off initially, but then it kind of came back. People did start getting out. They did start driving, and keeping our staff safe was number one, like everybody. And I can honestly say, and it's a miracle, we had very few issues, very few cases that we know of that were ever transmitted through the car wash. And even our convenience stores, that I was so surprised. To this day, I don't know of anybody who contracted COVID in our convenience stores working employees during that entire time. And I was amazed. And we had a few younger people, LSU students and stuff, that they got it somewhere else and they were sitting home. But we really made it through pretty well. And I pray every day and thank the Lord for that, because safety is number one. That was a challenging times, and we learned a lot from it.
Well, when you talk about your employees, I just wanted to comment that, across the board, doesn't matter what location I go to, whether I'm in the C-store, the car wash, or they all are just exemplary. I mean,
thank you.
You can tell that they are well managed and well taken care of and cared for. And that is no small doing. So congrats on that.
Thank you. That means more to me than anything, really.
Yeah.
It does.
You guys are nailing that. So next thing I want to bring up is in the way of challenges was the floods of 2016. We had some big rains here last night, but 2016 was a record event. I was curious how that impacted your business.
Oh, it did. And I tell you, 2016, as far as business-wise, was one of our worst years in history, and for a lot of reasons, and we can go in a few of them. But we had one facility that did take on water, the one on Greenville Springs Road, and like most people, it had never flooded before there, ever. We always build high enough where it's never an issue, but who knows? Everything was off the table in 2016. So we took on water at the car wash, the oil change, and the convenience store. But when that water went down, we were open the next day. We brought our whole staff pulled together. We cleaned that convenience store out completely. We pressure washed it out. We cleaned it. We rebuilt it and had it open immediately. So that was quite a feat. The oil change a little more challenging. Oil changes have basements in them where we store oil and we store supplies. It's containing and everything, so we're able to contain as much as we can. But we had a lot of cleaning to do there, so we were down a few days there. In the car wash, all the electrical motors and starters and all that kind of stuff we had to rebuild. So it cost us a lot of money to get re-going, and we made it through that well. But the biggest thing was the people, the staff. And I was so proud, like one of the girls in the office came up and said, look, let's send out an email to everybody who needs assistance. And we actually went to people's houses, our own staff. We believe in really taking care of our own, and we went and helped rebuild their houses. We tore some carpet out, helped them. We loaned a lot of money out to folks and say, hey, what do you need to get going again? And it was one of our most toughest moments, but we're very proud of the way we came together and helped each other and really fixed people's houses up. And, hey, we live and work here. I was born and raised here. And when you see other people suffering, like last night, I have some neighbors that took on water, never taken on water before. My heart just bleeds for them because, that's a situation none of us want to be in. And 2016, like anything, and back to even COVID, I always try to look for what good comes out of it. In COVID, some good came out of it. I look for that. I mean, the way we do meetings, the way we disinfecting cars, the way we clean, all of that stuff, we're going to continue forward even to this day. And the same with the floods. We learned a lot from those events, and we really came together as a community, as a family. And I think it was a bright spot for us.
So 2016 was a tough year because in July of that year, on July 17th, you had a tragedy happen.
We did.
At your airline store. Can you tell us about that and then how you recovered from that?
Boy, that is a sad moment in our family's history. Not just for the events that happened, but the people involved. Officer Garafola worked with us. We have a ongoing detail that helps us with our facilities all the time. His dad, Mr. John Garafola, worked for us up until a few years ago, worked with us.
These are Baton Rouge police officers.
One was a Baton Rouge police officer, and his dad worked with us too. So John Garafola, his dad, and then Brad Garafola, who was one of those sheriffs that lost his life, and unfortunately, they were working that day that it happened. And it was a Sunday, of course, and we're all very familiar with it. And it was just tragic what happened. Not the officers that lost their life, but for this community, it's a real scar, and it's something I'll never forget. To lose personal friends like Brad and all of them, all the policemen. And I try to look for positives as well. A couple of things that taught us, though, is communication is huge. When that event was going on, we were just opening the car wash. The convenience stores are open 24 hours a day. And when that event happened, we really thought we had disaster plans in place. They kind of go out the window when something like that goes on. I mean, people were running around and were nervous and crazy, and they didn't know what to do. So communication. So since then, we've had apps on our phones that we used to not let people carry their phones at work. We do let them carry their phones at work now, because the first thing when it happened, we want to know how many people do we have on the lot. We need to count for them all, and we didn't have a good way of doing it. So we really looked at our disaster planning after that happened, and there again, that was a situation that is as bad as it was, and I'll never forget it. I try to look for some positives, and we came together as a community. We offered counseling to our staff. We're still very close to Brad's father, John, to all the police department. We started a fund, and we raised a lot of money, gave it to their families. It's a tough situation, and it gets pretty emotional because it was so personal. And but it was, I try to look for positives, and we came out of it stronger, and I think as our community did as well. But it's something I wish no one ever has to go through again.
I mean, it was a phenomenally a tragedy of phenomenal proportions, and the fact that it happened at your location, but it was just a tragedy.
And a couple things that I could pass on other business owners to get before we always talked about a disaster. We talked about weather. We talked about fires. We talk about tornadoes. We talk about all that stuff. But I think you do need to discuss things in today's world of business and life in general, even with my kids and stuff too. You need to discuss what happens if you're in that situation, whether it is an active shoot or something like that. And it's something we bring up. Where do you go? Where do you meet? How do you contact your employees? How do you account for everybody? And the other thing, I got to give a lot of respect for the law enforcement, because when that incident happened, within seconds they were there. It was involved with law enforcement, and I've never seen how professional they are. And like one of our guys was trying to follow the police around and say, hey, when this was going on, he said, look, stand back. Safety is number one. Just stay out the way. Let them do their jobs. I did learn that. When you have a major situation like that, let the law enforcement, they are trained. This is what they do. They are professional, and they're fantastic. We have some fantastic officers in this city, and I'm just going to say that, and they're amazing. And firemen, EMS, all of them, they do a really nice job. They're very well trained. They know what they're doing. And in that situation, the best thing is to try to have a plan together, listen to what they say, and kind of stay out the way and let them do their job, because it could have been a lot. Unfortunately, we could have been a lot worse if we weren't careful. Because everybody.
But you guys handled that just incredibly well, and so why don't we take a break and get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. We would like to thank Modus for their support of the NXT Entrepreneur Podcast. Who is Modus? Modus is a facility services company that works in the e-commerce fulfillment industry across the United States. What do? They like to say they take it from the conveyor to the dock door. Well, what does that mean? It means that they're building the pick stations with the cable management. They're installing guardrails and bollards. They're putting down floor marking. They're putting up aerial signage. These guys build fencing systems, shelving systems, and racking systems. They also do rack recovery for when there's rack failures. They also install dock levelers and dock doors. Modus also installs ASRS systems, which is automated storage and retrieval systems, as well as other robotics projects. They've worked for the largest e-commerce retailers in the world, and they can work for you. If you need to find Modus, you can reach them online at modusmoves.com. And we are back with Justin Alford of Benny's Car Wash. Justin, we were just talking about the challenges and how those things impacted your employees and how you guys were able to be there and help your employees. And I was reminded of a story you told me one time about helping teach some of your employees English. Sure. I was wondering if you could touch on that real quick.
Sure. And back in the early 90s, 93, 94, we had a lot of Vietnamese in the Baton Rouge area, and they started working with us, and we had as many as 70 at one time. And they were missing work because they had to go learn English. They had to go to these English classes. It was part of their thing when they came here. So we hired 2 English teachers, and we would turn the lobby of the car wash and airline into an English class at night. We would do it twice a week. We had the books turned into a classroom, and it was accredited. It was accredited too, so they would count for their English. So it's amazing, people and entrepreneurs, and that's what's so great about capitalism and entrepreneurship, and that's what I enjoy the most, is you find a way. You can study things in books and academics, but you find a way, and this is something that developed, and most of our best ideas have come from the staff, and they said, hey, look, we can't come to work, we have to go take English. I said, okay, let's teach English. Another incident is Chinese New Year is a big thing to the Vietnamese, and it's always around Mardi Gras time. There's another week we were missing a lot of work. We had no workers and no staff. So what do we do here? So we ended up having a Chinese New Year celebration every year for the Vietnamese around the same time. We'd pull the permit to be able to shoot fireworks. They would do the dragon dance. We'd rent out a facility. and we would give away prizes, and we pull it. So you take a negative and you always try to turn it into a positive, as my dad always told me. And this was a situation. Hey, these situations came up. Said, how do we make them into a positive? So we taught English. We've had Chinese New Year parties. We really, and everybody says it in every classic business book you read. You treat employees with like family, and I really think we try to as best we can. And you really got to have a lot of empathy and listen. And a small problem to me is a big problem to someone else. And that's something I learned a long time ago. So we take one at a time and we try to work through them. And we really listen and try to make it work. Those are fun times. They really
That's
are.
Fantastic.
We have a lot of great videos and pictures of those Chinese New Year parties. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. So I was curious about your thoughts on growth. New markets, new locations. What kind of discussions do y'all have about that?
Well, we're always looking, and we're always looking for growth opportunities. But we also believe in making sure, and this can lead into our question about branding maybe later, of taking care of our old facilities. And our facilities are 30 years. We have airline is over 30 years old. The one on Essence approaching 30, and we want them to run as just as well as the new ones. So we really go back and we spend a lot of investment on those. We are always rebuilding, always updating. So a lot of companies focus on new growth and all of that stuff, but ours, we have no magic number out there how many locations we want to have, what opportunities to come about. So we are always looking for new ones, and we're always looking. And location is still very important. So just to build it is not something we're interested in. Also, then the managing. A lot of people build facilities all the time, and I can give you example. They build these beautiful facilities, and they have no staff for them. They have no managers in place. They don't check on them. Running is still the hard part. You can build car washes all day long. The oil companies showed us that. Exxon hired engineers in the 70s and opened full-service car washes in Baton Rouge. They had engineers running these things, and there's not a one of them are left today. They didn't make it because you still have to run them. So as far as expanding the new markets, we're always looking, and I think we have a few more opportunities in Baton Rouge we're looking at in the Baton Rouge area. But we want to be able to get to them. We want to be able to run them. We want to be able to go to them and continue with our same quality and the same branding that we always had. So that's really important to us.
So all the while, the number of car washes has grown.
It has.
Right? So, if you look back just 10 years ago, there's a fraction of the car washes then that there are now.
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, there was probably 12 in the area, and today there's 36. Wow. So it's grown a lot. And Baton Rouge hasn't grown that much in population, but the number of car washes has grown. It's a very competitive business, like almost every business is now, and that keeps you sharp and keeps you doing it better, and we're still trying to improve every day on it.
So you mentioned branding, and you guys are going through a big rebranding. The green bennies is sure. What that's about. So I was curious, when I look and see what you're doing with that rebranding, it's a massive undertaking. I mean, it's the facilities, it's the employees, shirts, and it's signage, it's across the board. It's a big expense, obviously.
It is.
And I was curious, when you look at that, like what are the thoughts that are going through your mind? Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Sure.
And how do you justify the expense? Talk us through that.
Sure. And back to when my grandfather started, he used to always name his locations after the street. We had the Florida Street Car Wash. Right. We had the Plank Road Car Wash. And when we went to build Airline in 91, 92, there was already an Airline Car Wash. So then my dad said, what are we going to do here? So that's when we came with the name Benny. Of course, his name is Benny, and we changed it to Benny's. So that was one of our first rebrandings then. And we had a local design guy. His name was Keith Neely, by the way, and he came up with this logo and designed it, and it was a lot of black and burgundy, and that was our colors, and that was our look, and it served us real well. And in 2014, 2015, we said, you know what? Things are changing. Let's go with a fresh look. We were building the car wash on Segan Lane, and we were under the design phase. Let's look and see what's out there. So we went to a branding company again, and we really looked at everything. And some people, and this is why everybody has their talents, and that's why they're so talented. This company we hired, they rode up and down the street and took pictures of all the buildings around. And, of course, red is your most dominant color. And it's very dominant, Pep Boys, Walgreens, Wendy's, all of those are red. And which colors? So we came down to a green and orange is what he said. I said, well, you know what? Green has the environmental friendliness, which we are very environmentally friendly compared to washing your car at home. And he came up with all these designs. We put them all over the wall at the office. We must have had 500 pictures of different designs. And we slowly narrowed them down. We had our whole team come in there, and we were, look, let's pull this one, let's pull that one, let's pull this one. We narrowed it down to about 3. Then we finally narrowed it down to 1. And we came up with the Benny's green with the white. And there's things that you just don't think about that I didn't think about, and he brought up. Like when you have a 4-color logo, you know, that's 4 colors. So for printing is more expensive. It's harder to match those colors. So we kept it real clean and real simple, the green with the white, and the gray is our other color. So we went through that whole thing. And then now, how do you get that to the field, we call it? You know, McDonald's used to say they used to redo their stores every 7 years. Every 7 years, if you think about it, McDonald's goes in and changes the colors of the buildings or changes something. They still keep the golden arch,
right.
But they do change something. So we've been on this now. We started really in 2016 when we opened Segan Lane, rebranding our locations, and we have a couple left to do. But it's expensive. I mean, we just finished our one on Essen Lane, and it was millions of dollars in signs and colors and paint and permits and architectural drawings. So we don't just go and just change the sign or change one thing. We really go redo the whole facilities, and that'd be a great. You can show our before and after of Essen and Perkins and the ones we've done. It's a big difference. So it was a long process, an expensive process, and we're hoping to wrap it up. We should have been done by now, and COVID kind of got in our way the last couple of years. But hopefully by the end of next year, we'll have all our facilities looking the same.
You know, when many businesses rebrand, they're changing their signage on their building, they're changing the graphics on their vehicles and the shirts and their business cards. But you guys are changing your buildings.
We are. We are.
That's where the dollars really escalate. So it's a good look, and best of luck with that.
Sure.
Hey, I did want to talk about the challenges today as you consider growing your business, expanding in markets, sure. and like the challenges in getting a facility built today.
Yeah, and you're in the construction business, and it is tough. My grandfather laughs. He used to tell me when he built this one on Florida Street, he spent $10,000 for the whole facility. And he never had a set of plans. He said he never had a set of drawings or nothing. He bought a piece of property, started working, and opened. It was just kind of the way it is. And now, of course, $10,000 doesn't even cover the lawyer fees. It really is difficult. And I've really noticed even the last 5 years, and probably yourself included, to remodel the one on to Essen, I think it took us 6 months just to get permits. And then the other thing, they had 8 different permits, one for every structure. Every canopy had a separate permit. Wow. And if it's about the fees, fine. I'd rather pay the fee and just have one permit, because when the inspector comes out, he's inspecting one building and he does it for the different one. Everything is more complicated now and more expensive. The days of when you could pick a piece of property that was zone C2 and we were good to go. We knew we found a piece of property, Airline High, when we bought that one, 91, it was C2, we're golden. But now just about everything has to go through the planning commission and has to go through the council and has to, things are just really, it's really not as simple. And the other thing, setbacks, and the one we just opened up on Lee Drive, we bought almost 2 acres, but we're only able to build on about 1.5 acres of it. Well, that's expensive land to not to be able to use. We have these big setbacks and 6-foot sidewalks and landscaping requirements, and all of that's driving the cost up. So to wrap that up, building and construction is just not simple anymore, and it takes us a lot longer than I ever thought to build and design. We figure it takes almost 2 years by the time we say, yes, let's go in this piece of property before we're really getting developed, because it's just a slow process, and I wish it was faster, and I think that's some things that maybe Baton Rouge and the state of Louisiana can look at. I think it would be even more competitive is how do we speed the process up for people to come and develop and businesses to come and get open, and I think we should look into ways to make that more efficient.
You had talked about friendships that you had made in the industry through associations earlier in the podcast. I was curious how important that is year in and year out to Benny's Car Wash.
Well, our best friends are in the car wash industry, and that's one thing about a family business. Our family business, it is, you're never off. It's you live, breathe, eat, and sleep car washing and gas and convenience stores and oil changes. I mean, we talk about all the time. And another thing, it's a kind of a lonely business, car washing, because for whatever reason, two lawyers in Baton Rouge will go to lunch together all the time, or on the same floor. They'll be friends. But for whatever reason, car wash guys competing in the same market are not very friendly to each other. No, I don't want to say friendly, but they just don't associate. So our friendships are based from out. We have a very good friend in Lake Charles. We have a very good friend in Lafayette. My friend in Germany. I have a friend in Buffalo, New York that I talk to every single day. And we've made friendships all over the world in this business, and that's very important to me. And we've learned so much from that, and it's really opened our eyes to new technologies and new ways of doing business. So that's important, and that's just kind of the way our industry is. And we cherish them. My dad has his friends that he talks to every single day. It's another reason we've stayed really in the Baton Rouge area, is because we had friends in these other towns that we all helped each other with, and we just kind of stay here.
Yeah, I know y'all have created a legacy of being generous and sharing what you've learned.
Sure.
I know your dad has just helped a lot of people, and I guess if you're talking to people outside of your market, yeah, that's fine, because it's not like there's going to be any problem with stealing business, but it still takes energy and effort. And
it does. And the industry is changing too, and like you said, we private equity is a big thing now, and it's coming into the car wash space. There's a lot of private equity companies looking at it. There's so much money, and that may lead us into another topic. There's so much money. The private equity market is trillions out there, and a lot of your people are familiar with it. It's just retirement systems, all this stuff. It's not the stock market, but they're these private equity companies. And they need place investment. So they're looking for car washing now. They've done storage buildings. They've done trampoline parks, and car washing's on their radar right now. So there's a lot of money floating around.
And they'll just roll them up. And
they roll them up in these big numbers. And in private equity, every year, they every 5 to 7 years, they have to flip it to another private equity. So they kind of move it around, and that's just the kind of the way it works. But we're still family, locally owned, and proud to be, and we're still keep our chips in the game, and we want to still control our own destiny. But the industry is changing. It's getting a lot more Wall Street oriented, and that's got some good and pluses about it, like I said. But I do cherish the relationships throughout the world that we've made through our friendships, and I hope that doesn't go away. I hope we can keep that going.
Well, I know you've learned a lot from those associations and trade shows and those things. But I was curious, do you study like business books? I mean, what else do you use? Do you for your management excellence? Do you listen to podcasts? What do you?
All of the above. We send all our managers, including myself, through the Dale Carnegie course here. Okay. That's been a real helpful thing to us. I've been through the course. All our managers end up going through it. A lot of our staff go through it. The podcast, yours is wonderful. I've listened to it. I've the Wall Street Journal, the Baton Rouge Business Report, all of the above. And nowadays you got it in your pocket, your cell phone. You can get instant news as quick as you can. A lot of the business books, the Who Moved My Cheese was a great one to read. From Good to Great, all of those, all of the above. We study all the time, but we're always learning. We're always looking for new tips and new information, and we try to stay on top of all the information we can. I read a lot of technology stuff too. Like I subscribe to the QSR magazine, which is quick serve restaurants. A lot of great technology comes in quick serve restaurants, and I've been to the Disney Management Training Institute, learned a lot there, and Disney's one of the best service organizations around. So all the above, and cool. You can never stop learning.
So for a third generation to excel like you guys have is pretty exceptional. Curious if there's any thoughts of there being a fourth generation Alford involved?
Yeah, and kind of like with my dad, I've never pushed. I have two kids. They're 22 and 21, and like I said, one just graduated from Tulane. He's studying for the LSAT, wants to enter law, he says. My daughter, she's a senior at LSU. She's studying accounting, wants to be a CPA. My brother has two children. They're in the fourth grade, so they got a little ways to go. And they've all worked at the car wash here and there. My daughter has. My son has too. He's been working in the convenience store some with us. So, but I've never pushed him, and I want to see where their paths go. And maybe one day would love to see it pass on to another generation. And But I'm still young. I'm only 50,
sure.
and my brother's fairly young, and so we hope to be around a lot longer.
Sure,
and this is what we do.
Well, it's just such an impressive enterprise that you've built when you consider all the locations and all the moving parts of it, and it's something worth holding on to and handing down for sure. So, look, I wanted to thank you, Justin. It's I've always admired your family. I love your parents. I appreciate what you guys do, what you do for the community, and I've always been impressed with how sophisticated your business is and how engaged you are every day. And I frequently had this thought that no matter what business, someone could pick you up and put you into any business that you could run it and run it well. And so congratulations on that. Continued success with all you do. And please tell Benny and Miss Pat that I said hello.
I will, and thank you as well, too, because, look, I've seen what you've done with the charities and these podcasts. You're an entrepreneur with it written all over, and you believe in the community like we do, and that's so important. And, hey, thank you for everything, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So I picked up on this constant theme through my conversation with Justin, and that's about investment. So Benny's Car Wash invests in their personnel through leadership training. They invest in their personnel by taking care of them during tough times. He shared those stories. They also invest in their facilities through their maintenance programs and their big CapEx rebranding projects. They invest in technology as well as continuous equipment upgrades. So it's all this, really significant investment in a constant pursuit of quality improvement. I think that a business school could learn a lot by doing a case study on Benny's Car Wash because it's so complex and they do their job so well and have for decades. If you'd like to learn more about Benny's Car Wash, you can find them online at bennyscarwash.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. We would like to thank our title sponsor, B1 Bank. They can be found online at b1bank.com. The Next Entrepreneur is produced by Propel Productions. You can find more information at propelyourstory.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Next Entrepreneur Podcast and hit the bell for notifications. You can also follow us on social media. The links are in the description below.